You're right. We're inching closer to retirement.
Inching closer to retirement. We're also inching closer to November. It is October 28th, 2021. Welcome aboard, folks. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast. We are episode 525.
Yeah, we are.
It is a gloomy, gross, and rainy, windy day here in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We hope it is not the same for you. We hope it is beautiful. We hope there are sunny skies, rainbows, and nothing but pure, positive optimism along the way for the rest of your weekend.
Yeah, I kind of walked out on my deck this morning.
Walk right back in.
It was wet and cold, and
yeah,
it felt good.
Feels
on my
like
bare
winter.
feet.
On your bare feet, you're going back to that now.
Yeah, it's winter time.
The cold sits.
Yeah,
the balcony sits. Bring out your old
Wisconsin
blood.
It's hard, man. It's hard to get over that hump
of being cold.
Yeah,
it's brisk today. I got on shorts, but it's.
But
brisk.
I mean, just like you, but when you get through it, it's sort of like getting out the door with the run or something like that. But if you're,
I've learned to love the cold.
I got in a hot shower and I'm like, I can't do it. But I slowly.
That's because your skin gets dry.
No, I know, but I slowly sit down to the cold side this morning after walking outside for a while.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
Doing yoga.
You got to be careful though. You can't have your shower too hot and for too long right now because it's dry skin season.
It is dry skin.
And if you got a beard, it's dry beard season. Your beard gets itchy. So just something to be aware of. Our daily or podcast daily public service announcement. Be careful with the temperature of your showers these days, both for the safety of others and your children, but also for your dry skin. And we can go on our website. It's at c26triathlon.com and shop our C26 moisturizer collection. And maybe we'll start posting pictures of like Everyman Jack. Like they do that kind of thing. Like they put on a Speedo and like a flat bill and they post on like a Hawaiian beached rock or something with waves splashing in the background. They're like, I don't always push 325 watts, but when I do, I use Everyman Jack body wash and carbon fiber plated loofah. And that's what gets me to the finish line faster to be on the podium in every single race. No.
With perfect hair.
That's right, with perfect hair. They're seriously, like most of those Everyman Jack guys, like they got, like the famous pose of like Marilyn Monroe's skirt, coming up, like that's how their hair looks. Like it's like it looks something like, they step right out of a salon, yet they just, race for 3 hours and 55 minutes in a 70.3 because that's also how fast they are. You know? And you're like, God, you're all like so good looking and nice. And it's kind of hard to hate on them. But at the same point, like we don't have to, post with loofahs and body soap half naked, which is also probably a good thing because most of those guys are, in decent shape. So no one really wants to see you and I posing on the rocks in Maui with, the waves splashing behind us in slow-mo, with a C26 moisturizer and lotion package.
Yeah. We do our posing in a construction zone.
That's right.
Like out back and with our
we're blue collar,
full-on sweatsuit. Yep. Covering everything up.
We're blue collar guys. We got to work hard for this shit. We have to work hard to be mediocre, okay? And if you haven't been able to tell already, that's what we do. We're mediocre. But no, in all seriousness, if it's your first time tuning in, welcome. We appreciate you tuning in. We know you have a lot of options in the triathlon podcast universe and just podcasts in general, so we appreciate you giving us your time. We cover it all. We cover triathlon. We cover life. We cover everything in between. Sometimes we'll do swim, bike, and run specific podcasts. We'll do race recaps. We'll do race previews, which in the next few months, Ohio 70.3, which is one of our favorite races to go to and to visit and to spectate and to race because it also has our favorite race director, Ken Hammond. That got moved yesterday, which was announced to Sandusky, Ohio. I messaged him yesterday and asked him to be on. He said he'd come on in the next couple of weeks or months whenever he can get a real good grasp on how the race will go. So we'll have Ken on, talk about the new Ohio 70.3 race. So we'll do, again, like we said, we'll do race recaps on occasion. Sometimes we'll hop into our Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group. If you want to be a part of that conversation, just answer one simple question and we'll let you right in. There's a lot of awesome people in there, a lot of great conversation, and really an amazing community of very experienced, but also new athletes. So you're getting a lot of questions from newbies and a lot of advice from experienced athletes, from people who have never raced before to people who have won races and been on the podium in Kona, and everyone in between. So be part of that group, and sometimes we'll use that group as kind of to drive the topic of the conversation. Mike and I are both coaches and athletes ourselves, so we're always kind of trying to figure things out, and then we'll use our athletes we work with. We work with a very wide range of athletes from across the globe, help them in their journey. So we just kind of, we're in it. We're in it, not always in it to win it, but we're always in it, and we're in it to figure it out. And so we always have at least some kind of a pulse
In it to try and get it.
On the community itself. So it's kind of like a Seinfeld, like a horoscope episode. You kind of take it, leave it, apply it to your life. We have no sponsors. We have no ads. The only agenda that we do have an agenda, and that's to keep you happy and healthy in your endurance sports journey.
That's always nice.
It is always nice. And now that we've ruined your entire Thursday by having to picture us in a loofah and a Speedo, we'll try to get to something a little more,
I hear that Sandusky's a nice town, according to the Wikipedia.
It is.
Is it the best kept secret in America or something?
For sure not. Everyone says, yeah, you got to get over there. It's like it's the best city. Like, no one's talking about it. I'm like, where is there? Like, it's San Diego. I'm like, no, that's not. That doesn't fall on the list of things. Or it's Austin, Texas. I'm like, that's also not on the list. No, so Rev 3, like when Rev 3 started their brand.
Yeah, I remember this.
They tried to put, and this has been what, 9-10 years ago, probably. We're dating ourselves here. Yeah, so 8 years. So like 9-10 years ago. God, that seems like a while, right? So when Rev 3 launched, they tried to pick destinations and locations around the city, or around the country, that had amusement parks close by. They had Rev 3 Cedar Point. They had Rev 3 Sandusky, which close by, and then they tried to do kind of the same thing, like the World's Fair kind of theme with Rev 3 Knoxville, and then they had a couple other locations too. Obviously, didn't pan out, but it's pretty close. It seems like a kind of cool town. No offense, we know that the Polaris exit is one of our favorite exits in the U.S.
How far away is it?
I don't know.
Too far,
I feel like we could hopefully, I don't know, we'll check out the raid. We'd like to see at the Polaris exit and Gemini Boulevard.
Maybe we'll make it a 2-day deal.
Nothing, seriously, like, there's nothing to miss about Delaware. Nothing to hate it. And I'm just saying, like, and hopefully they can get away from that one restaurant's pretty cool. The two transition thing is what they probably will get away from. I would have to imagine that'll be a huge thumbs up and a huge, another gold star for not just the athletes, but also the spectators, because it is not spectator friendly. You got to have two transitions. So hopefully they get that worked out. I'm sure they're working on the details in that. But yeah, it looks exciting. It definitely looks a little more picturesque than Delaware. And again, no offense, but Delaware ain't that picturesque.
Are they swimming in? Is it like Lake Erie or something?
I believe so.
Okay.
And don't quote me on that. There's a lot of lakes up there in the Michigan area, but
that's one of the biggies.
Yeah. So I think it is. I want to say it is. I'm sure that half the stuff that they say they're going to do will probably be changed by this time next year. But at least the course description, or the brief description I saw in the email they sent, it had open water with some like piers and stuff. So I know it's on one of the Great Lakes. And that's about all I know. There you go. Located in northern Ohio along Lake Erie's scenic shoreline, Sandusky has been named best coastal small town in America. One of Ohio's growing destination spots. All two of them, right? Like, name how many destination spots you can find in Ohio. Cincinnati? Nope. Cleveland? Nope. Polaris exit?
Ohio State's
yes.
football stadium.
And the Polaris exit with Gemini and everything else. Like, we narrowed it up. Surprises with its beautiful parks, downtown architecture, and wealth of history. Athletes can expect a 1.2-mile swim in Sandusky Bay, a rolling 56-mile bike through scenic Erie County, and a 13.1-mile run along the shoreline of Lake Erie, capping off with a thrilling finish in downtown Sandusky.
Wow.
Which was one of the things, that's a huge sell, which is one of the things that we did end up kind of mentioning the first time we made the trip to Delaware to watch Ohio 70.3. I think I raced and you spectated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is the first time we went up there, was that downtown Delaware ain't that bad. But if they could have made it to where the finish line was like downtown, like in a small town, people hanging out at the bar, because it's a college town, it would have been pretty neat. And the football field was kind of cool, but it's quiet. It's just kind of very unceremonious, if you will. But hey, and maybe when they move to Sandusky, they'll stop having burritos and barbecue, and Ken Hammond can pitch in for some Snickers and pizza and Coke at the finish line. That's here for another day. That's here for a conversation with Ken. So I'm sorry for taking a shot at you, Ken. You're my boy. We love you. Hopping into the meat of the cast, I had a topic. I didn't know if you had a topic today, unless it was something to do with construction, contractors, and buying and selling real estate.
Yeah, that's all I had today.
Yeah, and that's all I had in our meeting earlier.
That's good. Yeah.
That's it. That was it. So yesterday we did a Zoom call, and I actually I know this might be a surprise, right? It might ruin the vision and perception a lot of our listeners have for you and I and our podcast, but we do zero prep. We do zero prep for a podcast. We don't have
no shit.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, Sherlock, thank you. But I had these big laid plans of doing this, they laid out Zoom call for athletes, doing a Zoom call for athletes only every Wednesday. I was going to go over benchmarks that I see with hours and accumulation and times and paces that usually equate to specific times in Olympic 70.3s and fulls, and how long it usually takes athletes to get there. Well, Mike, as you know, our day had quite a few hiccups yesterday where we were kind of pulled and tugged in multiple directions and trying to do different things next door at the Hub condo and then the new one. So I didn't get to it. So I hopped on the Zoom and I kind of owned it and said, hey, listen, I had this huge thing ready to rock for you guys. Didn't get to a single solitary piece of it. But let's open it up, baby, to Q&A, which are always a blast. But one of the topics that was brought up first, Whitney too, I think is who brought it up, was a great topic and one that I often forget to kind of bring up until I notice it myself, but this is a time of year when athletes get out that are at least being consistent or that have gone through pretty decent training in August, September, October. They walk out and they go for runs and they find that either their legs are in better shape than their lungs, or their lungs and their aerobic capacity seem to be in a much better place than their legs. Things don't seem to match up. And there's a few reasons for that. And that's kind of where I wanted to go with the topic today. You'll see it mostly in running, and you'll see it mostly in running because if you think about it, this time of year, for the most part, a lot of the athletes, if you're listening in the U.S. at least, you just went from unpleasant, unseasonable, atrocious running weather that was, super high dew point, super high heat, feels like and heat index, humidity, dew point, all those things, temperature, where you're basically saying I can't wait to not run anymore. Cause it's just, you can step outside and you're in zone 3 immediately because you're just sweating bullets and it just feels really hard. So while you're working your aerobic capacity, you're not moving your legs, right, as quickly as you might normally because your heart rate is so high and the RPE is high because the conditions dictate the fact that your RPE or your effort, your heart rate, all seem higher than your legs are actually moving, right? Well, now you've done all this training aerobically. You've kept working on that engine. You've kept, developing your system. You train for a 70.3 or a full, and now you've gone out and the last week or two, the temps dropped, right? Some people 30s already, 40s, 50s. Not only is it, and I think we all find this out, your first 2 to 3, even if you've been in consistent run shape, your first 1 to 2, maybe even 3 to 4 runs in cold weather, you're more sore the next day. You're always more sore the next day, which is something that gets used to. But the biggest thing is that if you're an athlete that was training in, again, July, August, September, whatever it was, and you're training by heart rate or even pace based on, and combining that with how you felt, well, you might have been cruising at let's give it a 9-minute mile, right? You're shuffling along maybe at a 9 to kind of keep your heart rate down. Well, now all of a sudden you're going by feel still and your feels is running 8-minute miles, 8:05, 8:10s. Your leg turnover is going to be a little bit quicker. You're going to be having a little more pounding. It's going to be quicker, maybe even a longer stride because you're actually able to run, not shuffle your way through what feels like the heat index death march that is the summer, right, of training. And so you wonder why your legs get a little bit more sore, while aerobically you're I feel fine. Why are my legs fading out so quickly? Well, it's because of the extra impact and the extra pounding that you're putting on your body, even though your system is right there. So it's a great time of year to be aware that it's going to take you a little bit of time to let your legs catch up with your aerobic capacity. And you need to be very careful about how you do that and when you do that. And also understand that it's okay, right? You're going to feel that, because again, right now, even just looking at the weather yesterday, the humidity's 65, 70, and the dew point is non-existent. You're no wonder I can breathe and run fast with keep my heart rate down. So it's just something to be aware of, and don't think that because a lot of people, I've taken 2 weeks off of training from the Ironman that I just did, and this 6 to 8 to 10 week huge build of training. And you're my fitness is gone. My legs have nothing, and you're doing this. And a lot of people are going from outside to inside training. So they're seeing a little bit of a power dip because for most people have a huge power dip when they train inside. So there's some things just be aware of, and that's why I think like it's even more so of a reason to be really aware of the type of training that you're doing this time of year. And it should be about cake building, right? And we talked about that again. I might talk about it later in the podcast, but those are just a few of the things that I see this time of year when we transition from hot, unseasonably warm, terrible run condition type weather to, man, I want to run all the time. Like you go from not wanting to run at all because it sucks. Now you want to run more. So you are, but your legs are taking a little bit longer to kind of catch up with you.
Yeah. And I'm going through that right now, obviously, but a big thing for me too, I think, is like, I don't know. First, I like running in the heat, and I think a lot of people do, obviously. But this time of year is good to get out and run, and people like that as well. That's interesting about how you just probably subconsciously start going a little faster, and then you wonder why you're sore, and you shouldn't be because you're whatever. But for me, it's just it's just the whole part about trying to get in that mindset of not having a race nearby, So that's the hard part a lot of times for me, is just getting that motivation to go out there. And I've been, shuffling along here still, I don't know if it's just that deep fatigue. And I mean, we talked about deep fatigue for a while. Even though you feel good after an Ironman, how deep is that stuff sometimes? And it's all relative to how much you trained previously. Because it's amazing how many people tell me that after an Ironman, maybe a day later, they're feeling fine. It's kind of wild to think about that, because of the rational, normal human being can't even put that into perspective.
Yeah, or even do one.
Right. And it's like, what? I was telling somebody, one of my athletes yesterday, that I've never been so sore in my life, is that my half marathon was the thing that got me the most. And I wasn't prepped for it or anything like that, but it was also
like, it was also the conditions that played a part in you being so sore, because the humidity and dew point were insanely high that day.
Yeah. And I had never ran more than 7 or 8 miles before that race. And then I went out and busted a half marathon, but it's really weird. Running at this time of year is so great. But to me, it's still like finding that pocket of motivation, and just being. So many people feel great right now, and it's amazing to me. But I'm still not right, even in the mode yet.
I think you brought up also, I think, what is a great topic for this time of year, and we talk about this a lot, and we even have a couple podcasts, like something about finding your why, or what is your why, or a lot of people's why right now is like, why am I training?
Yeah.
It's like why am I doing stuff so far away? Like, why am I stressing about this? And the answer to a lot of it is you shouldn't, right? You shouldn't stress. Like, this is the time of year to be uber flexible in everything that you do. You can only be so rigid for so long. And again, like we use the phrase like train so you can train the way you need to train for later on, like when it gets close to race day. That's also like goes with being rigid and being, adhering to a structure. And like those, like when people hear, I think sometimes that we work with athletes year round, they think, man, like that's hardcore. But like, we also are super flexible when it's time to be flexible. We have December rules, which is a podcast we did obviously last December about our athletes, where it's like, we don't want to talk to you. You don't talk to us. Go take naps, go read books, have coffee with your buddies, do what you want to, just come back safe and sound. It's like you need that time to re-energize. And I think putting the pressure on yourself 24/7, 7 days a week, 360, it's too much. And I think the battle, again, some people have right now is, why don't I have a why that's getting me out the door, or they're starting to gain and create resentment towards adhering to a structure. Like they're creating resistance. This is also a time of year where I tend to read comments in Training Peaks. Like I'll sing in them, and someone say like, I just didn't want to do it today, so I didn't do it. I'm like, that's cool. Like whatever. Like, like they want to take some control back in terms of what they feel like they can do and not do when there's not going to be a penalty attached, right? There's not going to be a race that's looming where they're going to feel bad about missing a run or missing a ride or missing that swim, whatever it is. But and I think it's fine, right? To be in that, well, why? Like, because usually when you're in that, if you're asking yourself, why am I doing this right now? then usually there are a lot of other questions you probably need to ask. Like what, like you're probably focusing on, because let's be honest, like most triathletes use training as like a method to deal with life or a method to deal with sadness or stress or happiness or kind of like, how they think about themselves. Like we use triathlon as like therapy. So like there's a lot of different ways you could probably, unpack that. But if you're asking yourself like, why am I even doing this right now? There's probably a lot of other questions you need answers, right? Mm-hmm. And that's also okay. Like I had an athlete call earlier this week and this athlete just did Ironman Indiana, but I also know his like job is like super stressful coming this year. And I was like, what do you want to do? She's like, I don't even know. I don't know what I want to do next year. Is that a problem? And I was like, no, I actually think it's fantastic, because the truth of the matter is most of you don't know. You just sign up to give yourself a reason to get out the door the next day, which also doesn't lead you down the path of, success, right? Because you end up resenting and you feel like you're trapped. And I told her, I said, more athletes than not, because we're about to send out, it's almost November, so we usually send out this huge, not huge, but like a questionnaire and a form to our athletes. It's like, list the races you want to do next year, dates, list your vacations, list the things you want to accomplish most next year, to kind of get an idea of like, how the season's going to go, so we can start doing some planning for our athletes. And I said, more athletes than I've talked to than not the last week or two have been like, I don't know what I want to do. And I think a huge part of that is that people have been in, I'll use like relationships as an analogy here, is like people who have like date around, they always just kind of date around till they get in a relationship, right? And then if they get into a relationship for like a year, 2 years, 3 years, when they get done, most people don't like jump right back into dating. They're like, I just don't want to date anybody right now.
Yeah.
That's how a lot of you guys are with racing. Like if you've been in triathlon, you've been dating, which, the person you're dating is you're racing. You've been racing 4, 5, 6 times a year. You can do different things. You can depend on different races to happen. Races happen on time. Nothing gets postponed. Nothing gets canceled. You can just date race. You can just do it as much as you want. And for the last 2 years, a lot of you have been in a long-term relationship with a race, like a race that you signed up for in 2019 to do in 2020 that didn't happen in 2020 and then got pushed to 2021. Like, you listen to 2 years, right? Or you might be one of those people that got pushed back and did Ironman California, so you're still screwed. Or Ironman Canada, you're still screwed. Or some races over in Europe, still screwed. Like, you're still stuck in that relationship, and you're like, I need a way out. I need to find something else to do. I need to do something else. Or maybe I'm just gonna, not gonna date anymore, period. That's what I'm seeing, is like people have finally gotten through their big race relationship that they've been in for 2 years, and they're like, I don't know that I want to date next year. Or if I do, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know that fits in my life. And I think that's what a lot of people are seeing right now, is they've been stuck having to be so rigid and so focused on one day and one race for 2 years. A lot of people, again, I think actually built up kind of like a resistance or a resentment towards a race, because they were like, I didn't even want to do it this year. Like I signed up to race an Ironman in 2020 because I didn't want to do it in 2021, and F it. Here I am stuck doing an Ironman in 2021 because I signed up for it 2 years ago, and I don't have the money and I want to be training. And so I think a lot of athletes, which I think it's great, that they're like, I just don't know what I want to do next year. I just don't know. That's encouraged, because I think what happens is it allows you opportunities to investigate and explore and look for other areas to excel at and to have fun with. And I think I liken it to like the person who's been stuck behind a desk for like a 2-year job, and they're like, all right, we're letting you go. You're a contract. You've reached your term with us. Here's a nice little severance package. And you're like, great, I'm going to go see the world. Right. I'm going to get a new perspective on what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I think this is a great time period for people to do that when they look at their endurance sports journey. It's like, what do you really want it to look like? And not just from a race standpoint, but what do you need to get out of your journey? And what do you want to get out of your journey within sport? Is it to get healthy? Is it to get fit? Is it to beat times? Is it to qualify? Is it to have fun? Is it to meet people? Is it to challenge yourself? ask yourself those questions before you just get FOMO and drop $800 in a race you don't really ever intend on doing.
About 8 years ago, whenever I started this with you, when I started writing that blog, the Crushing Iron blog, which I keep telling myself I want to get back into, because I'll tell you why. It was a passionate hobby at the time. We talk about triathlon as a hobby, which it is for most people. But I think, almost like if you're studying to be a realtor or something and you have an exam out there, that becomes a sort of a profession. And then when you put that race in there as the exam, it kind of turns up the intensity of everything, right? It makes it more serious or something. And I think that, feeling good is one of those things that's really kind of hard to describe. I mean, I just feel good. And then tomorrow, should I feel better? And then how do you pinpoint that, right? How do you know if you feel better? And then there's that sort of always has that low level addiction to feeling better. So we always are more. How many hits did I get on Instagram? Like all those little side, paths that we can take to feel better. But I think it really is sort of like, how do we figure out and accept that I just feel good today, right? And it's not that easy, because I think we need, a lot of us want to have that. I'm a perfect example. Like whenever I have a race, in the back of my mind, I'm like, all right, so right now it's chat 70.3. And I'm thinking in my mind, all right, I have to turn this up in February, instead of, but which is fine, and I think that that's sort of what we preach in a way. It's sort of like, get to that point where you can turn it up, but don't have to turn it up from a real low place where you got to go, from 0 to 60 in 2 weeks. That's what creates the bad cycles, and it's sort of like, breathing. I like to do deep breathing stuff because it does, I feel like, take pressure out of my body, and it makes me feel good and feel lighter and whatever, and gives me a little more clarity. But, we talked about this idea of movement as medicine last time, I think.
Yeah.
And I had an athlete email me, and he said he has always liked that quote. And he said he had something to add to it. And he said, I will add to that community is oxygen. And I thought that was awesome because, we're going to run camp here in a few weeks, and you know how that does. Everybody's like, I'm really hoping, that weekend gives me a shot in the arm. Yeah. And I think that's exactly what it does. But it's the community aspect of it where we're not out there. There's really no competition. We have little games and things like that, but people are out there just competing with the hills and looking over and seeing their friend is still going. And it's like, all right, I'm going to keep going too. And then you realize you can do it. And then you realize you can do more than you ever thought you could. That's usually how that weekend works for most people. It's like, what? I just ran, 50 miles this weekend or whatever.
Well, I think I think a huge part of it though is, and I like what they said about community is oxygen, is that, I think we live in a world where, all we're doing is putting stuff out, right? We're putting things out there. We're struggling. We're trying to figure out, what we need to do, who we have responsibilities with, how we need to, do things for other people, and how hard things are going to be. And so, I think like what we ultimately need to do is figure out what you want best, right? What's best for your life, what fits best for you, and what when you said about community as oxygen, is what really needs to happen is you need to figure out what is it exactly that gives you oxygen. What is that you need this year? And I think that's what, so when we have run camp, we have upwards of 20 to 40 people that come in, and then we all stay in this huge lodge. And while people come to run and do things and be active and get but a run block in or focus on running, it's like people leave with it's like a breath of fresh air, because you end up talking to people not about triathlon, not about running. You just talk about life, and you feel energized. Like you said, like an oxygen is, community is oxygen. That is what the point is, right? Is to be involved in something that's bigger than yourself. And because then it takes the pressure off, right? Yourself is it takes, that was one of the very first things I learned when I got sober. Is my primary therapist was listen, no matter what, if you don't believe in God, that's fine. Believe in the rock over there, or the stream, or the water, a higher power of the galaxy or the universe. but stop putting everything on you and give it away to somebody else. Stop putting so much pressure on yourself to make all the best decisions and just figure out what needs to be done and just do your best. And, while it may not seem super simple, but it all comes back to, I don't think a lot of us know, like you said, like, what does feeling good look like, right? Like, and that's what, a lot of people sit back and go, what do you want your business to look like in 5 years? What's your 5, 10, and 15 year plan? What is this? And while I think those exercises can be beneficial, I think it also can make you very narrow-minded or narrow-focused in that what you should be asking is like, when I've felt the best in life, whether it's in training, whether it's in life, whether it's what you're like, what was I doing? Or most importantly, maybe what was I not doing, right? Because so many people, I think, try to force an insane amount of hours into their life that overwhelms them in a way that they can't get back. And they basically go from signing up for an event that they want to be life-changing, but in the interim, leading up to the race, they end up resenting it being a part of their life because they feel so much pressure and angst and expectation. I'm like, you guys do know we don't get paid to do any of this, right? You don't get paid at all. In fact, you spend thousands upon thousands and usually upon thousands of dollars to do this. We do it because we choose to do it. So in normal life, would you choose to do something where it's going to cause you more stress or make you feel worse about yourself or going to, put you in a worse place mentally? No, you're going to find a reason to do something to alleviate that and remove it. It doesn't mean, and I think that's where like people who are obsessed with being a triathlete, they get stuck in that, well, I have to do triathlons and I'm going to lose that part of the community, right? I'm going to lose my oxygen. Movement is medicine, and any kind of movement is the kind of medicine that you need, whether it's just biking or just swimming or hiking or running or triathlon or swim run or whatever it is. Like movement and nurturing and finding a way to positively impact yourself mentally and emotionally should always come before, in my opinion, what you want out of your body physically. Because if that's all you're looking for is physically and fitness and expectations and races, then like you're eventually going to come up with like maybe a couple awards, maybe a few podiums and some great race results, but mentally and emotionally, your bank is going to be empty.
I want to kind of, because as I talked about triathlon and the hobby part of it, and like you said, we don't do it professionally. This is just something we do, and hopefully because we love it. And I want to kind of, what does Rich Roll say? I want to unpack it a little bit.
Yeah, you want to unpack this.
I want to unpack this a little bit because
mattress.
For me as well, because we, a big part of what we do here is talk things out. We sort of try and help, I think, figure things out on our own, and we go back and forth, and we're like sounding boards for each other. But the idea of triathlon as a hobby, and how do you create that, that almost innocent spark behind what you're doing, instead of, oh man, I got to go 11:30, that whole thing. Cause I think it's possible. It's just a matter of figuring it out. Last night I went to eat at our place, State of Confusion. Had a little bison burger.
We owe Damien a steak, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And when I got out, I was pulling out of the parking lot. It wasn't that late. It was maybe like 7:30 or something, but it was dark. And there's a big stream of bikes, and they're just kind of out riding one of those, what's that called?
A group ride?
Yeah, group ride. No, but like I was thinking about the one that protests gas or whatever.
Oh yeah, I don't know those.
I did one of those back in the day, by the way.
You just surprised me.
You ride right down the biggest street in town with about 150 bikes and
listen,
critical mass.
So every city in America should be more bike friendly. Let's just be honest.
But I mean, there was probably 50 bikes and they all had blinking, red lights, and I just said, "Oh man, I got to pull behind." But I was like, and I started thinking, I was like, could I do that right now? I mean, because it didn't. I said, well, I'm a triathlete, so I can't do things like this. They were just out joyriding. There's kids in the pylon or the peloton.
The pylon.
There's kids in the pylon. But you know what I'm saying? They just pull in a parking lot and they're all just hanging out. I'm like, man, they probably didn't even ride like 5 miles yet or whatever. And I started thinking, that's ridiculous, man. And I think there's so many people that do that, but you kind of cross over a line and it's like, no, I'm a triathlete, man. I don't do stuff like that.
Yeah, I take everything seriously.
But I know a lot of my athletes, I think they find that, and I'm just searching for it out loud here. In a way, sometimes I get to the point where I'm like, man, I just really want to, like my backhand wall throwing thing. Where's that? Or what is it? And it's. I think it all is kind of in those little micro goals that we talked about a few weeks ago on those podcasts. I really like that stuff because, if you can kind of like go to the pool for several days in a row or a lot, and really try to perfect that catch, and then when you get it, it's so rewarding. And then what's the next step or whatever? And it's not about, doing a big, long swim as much as it is just kind of getting in there and really working on things. And I think, it's like flipping a switch a little bit because now is the time to do that. And you don't have the exam out there yet. And it's sort of like just practicing those algorithms or the long division or something like that and getting a joy out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was a time when I used to get a joy out of solving math problems.
Really?
Yeah. I was pretty good at math, actually.
I'm
But
very.
it's like buried deep in my brain now.
I'm very good at like addition and multiplication in my head, like big numbers. But when you throw like decimals and fractions in there, I'm out. Like I can't do any of that. I mean, who the hell needs to know what BC squared?
It's just
over
mind practice.
Over n. It's ridiculous.
It's problem solving.
It's not. It's problem creating is what it is because nobody can figure it out. No, I mean, and listen, like when you talk about seeing the guys on the bikes and like doing that kind of stuff, it's like we're all impatient to a degree. If anything affects us in a way that we think is negative, it's annoying. Like even if 100 people and their kids are getting super enjoyment. And I think a lot of it is that like subconsciously we're like, fuck, I wish that was me. Here I am driving back to the house. Man, I wish I was doing something like that because I would say like most of the people you see that they could care less about their legs and their fitness. They're doing it for the community piece. And they're doing it to get something out of it mentally and emotionally, and that's something that I think everyone needs, especially going into this time of year where it's about to get cold. People are going to do less stuff. You're not going grilling out with your buddies or heading to the pool with your friends, or doing a bunch of group rides outside. For most people where you live, it's like you just kind of get stuck doing stuff by yourself. And I think finding ways to cultivate community and doing things with other people is the way to make it through this tough season. That's why it's seasonal depression for a reason. People feel isolated and lonely, and you need those friendships and you need those solid, concrete relationships to get you through it. But I also think that's where it's a great time to explore your relationship with training and what it actually does for you or what you expect from it. And if you are expecting something from it, are you actually receiving it? And if you're not, then maybe just beating your head against the wall trying to get something out that's never going to come is maybe not the right direction. Maybe, and there's like the opposite ends of the spectrum when you talk about like the coach athlete relationship is, and I use this example during the Zoom yesterday as well, if you take all the pieces of life, right? The pieces of training and racing and fitness and like the coach has those, but what first needs to be laid down is you need a great understanding of like the athlete. Like I'm trying to build a puzzle and make it the way it's supposed to look, and have everything fit perfectly. Is the athlete first has to fill out and help you figure out what exactly and how the puzzle looks with life, relationships, stress, kids, profession, like all these things need to be laid down. And then as a coach, it's your job to put in your puzzle pieces around it to complete a picture that's not cracked, right? Or dented or too much, right? Or you got pieces that are wedged against each other that, are causing stress, or there's too many pieces and it's just overwhelming. Like I can't even do this. I can't build a puzzle because it's supposed to be a 100-piece puzzle and it's 500 here. Like I can't do this, and you give up. So as an athlete, as a coach, it's our job to fit those pieces around life to complement it. It's not the other way around, because what most often will happen is with athletes, they will look at the pieces of training and figure out what they can remove from life, right? What can I give up? And we even asked that on our questionnaires, like, what sacrifices are you willing to make? And people are just like, that's an interesting question. We're not obviously looking for, like anything negative, but it in terms of like, I'll give up time with my family or my kids. Like we don't want that. And if we do, but it is very telling, right? What people are willing to do to reach their goals. But is it be like, getting up a little bit earlier, or is it, skipping out on having, too much pizza on, whatever night, or, sticking to this or whatever it is, then it needs to be a healthy, right? Because in my opinion, it should never be a sacrifice, right? Because sacrificing to me sounds like it's something that I really want and desire for, and that does something great for my life, but I'm willing to give it away, right? I'm willing to sacrifice it for the greater good or for the training. What it needs to be more likely is, or maybe even reword in our questionnaire, is like, where do you see yourself reallocating your best energy and best time in the pursuit of this goal, right? And that's how I think we should look at things, is not giving things up, not giving things away, not sacrificing, getting up at, 0 dark 30 and doing whatever. And, like, this is supposed to be good for us. Like, that's supposed to be expectation heaping and resentment building and questioning why you do. It's like, write down on a sheet of paper, like, what do I want to get out of what I'm choosing to do with my time this year? And how do I best want to allocate that time? Do I have the time to allocate that? Because that's where most triathletes are, like you're talking about being good at math. Most triathletes are horrible at math because they just pull a number out of thin air and a race out of thin air and expect it to happen regardless of the reality of life, which is the number of hours in a day, the number of kids they have, the number of responsibilities they have, the number of job, whatever it is, the amount of stress that they have, or injuries they've had before, the time off that they've had. Like, no one likes to calculate those. We just want to calculate hope and dreams, and that's not often reality. And so I think, like, not knowing what you need to do is a great sign of maturity, because I think it also means, like, you're just not sure yet of the time you have to allocate towards an event and a goal. And that's good, because you're not over promising or over committing yourself to a goal that may be so out of reach you end up not completing or completing any kind of goal for the entire year. So I think not knowing and kind of hanging out in no man's land is a really good thing.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of a gray area of finding joy in the things you do. How do you find that joy in what you're doing in triathlon? And I think a lot of times, instead of like you're saying, sort of like not forcing it, you just kind of want it to emerge, and that's how I look at things. And I think, the thing about last year that was so difficult for so many reasons was that one of my things was I'd look up, maybe in the what's going on when I was in Nashville, or what's going on this week in Chattanooga or whatever. You see those listings, and then I would do things like just go out and see this author. He wrote a book about, I don't know, whatever, how to build chicken coops or something like that. He's an author, and he's just giving a speech at the local bookstore or something like that.
Was it good, or did he lay an egg?
Oh, yeah. He always laid an egg. But just it's really to do things like, but all that stuff was shut down, like yeah. I was like, I got to get back into meditation and yoga, and I want to go to this class. And I looked up and they said, we're Zoom. Having this, now it's on Zoom. And I'm not doing
meditation on Zoom.
But like getting out of your comfort zone a little bit to do things like that. And it always feels good. It's just, that's what I mean about like transitioning from the bed to get out and run, or transitioning from the dinner table to go out and see a guy speak about something, or an author, or a photographer, or any of these kind of things, or the Iron Cowboy, whatever, to get out at night. God. But to do stuff like that creates a balance, or more rounded life, because I think triathlon can kind of like take up a big old chunk of that in your brain a lot. And just, I think it's important to kind of keep a balance with that. I mean,
the chicken coop guy, was it supposed to be, was he a comedian? Did he tell a lot of jokes? No, I know. I could go on forever. This is,
you are dad.
I am dad joke personified.
Did you, they talk about the dad bod? Have you?
Yeah. What are you trying to say?
No, but we used to talk about that. No, you look great, dude. I have the dad bod. But it's interesting. I heard the other day why that happens. It's a natural thing in nature.
No way.
Yeah, because your body.
Have you seen a gorilla? Their dads, they're ripped. They have chests like freaking like.
But this is what they said is like, your body is preparing you for sleepless nights, so it's storing fat.
Bullshit.
I think about it.
Where, in your chest? No one needs man boobs. Like there's no reason for.
No, but you're being signaled that you're going to probably have a lot of sleepless nights with a newborn.
Oh, cool. You don't see any Everyman Jack guys with man boobs. They're all freaking ripped
because they don't come out when they're,
Yeah, that's true.
They stay
and
inside.
They wait to have kids.
They walk out one day and it's the sunshine just the oil is all over them.
And everything's in slow-mo.
But nobody saw, where you been for the last year and a half? And then
You've got a 3-year-old.
they look in the mirror and they're like, I'm ready. Pregnant. I'm ready to go outside in my tank top.
What was the, like they're like triathlete Fabios. Most of those guys, most of you probably know what Fabio is.
I mean, those guys are awesome. And they seem mostly like nice guys.
I know. That's the problem.
That's the problem.
Super nice.
Super
like you
nice
really want to be dicks. You're like, God, you're fast. You're good looking. You have great hair and you're nice. Like, this is not, it's like, you don't want that neighbor either. Right, you don't want the neighbor. No. You're like, God, everybody's. You're like, you're stuck next to the guy that's like that neighbor. You're like, oh my God, like,
it's like all the moms in the neighborhood are walking their kids
slow mo. You're like
back and forth in front of the house.
I think Jill must be walking a lot. This is the 23rd time she's walked her new baby, in front of our driveway. And then you go up to the top floor and you look out and she's doing like, she's hitting 2 driveways and turning around, just taking a peek for the Everman Jack guy to come rolling out of the house in his, his Speedo and his tank top. Like, oh, do you see? There he is. They're getting on like
picking weeds,
picking weeds. They hop on like the neighborhood mom chat and they're like, oh, okay, it's, what time is it? 8 o'clock. All right. That Everyman Jack guy is going to go put on some body glide. Let's they all get out the top window, their telescopes on, they're chatting away. And, anyway, that's it. We'll wrap it up there. Listen, that's always fun when we kind of riff off on have a good, funny. You guys laughed. So if you didn't laugh, then, lighten up a little bit. That's all we got for today. It's Thursday. Oceanside 70.3 this weekend. Good luck to everyone racing. It's October, which is nuts. It's always been an iconic race. It's on my bucket list to do. It's usually in April. It's usually the kickoff to the, or even like sometimes the last Saturday in March. It is always the kickoff for the North American season, but it's been postponed. So good luck to everyone doing that this weekend. Any other races that you're doing, go out and trick or treat, dress up, do something with your life. You dressing up, Mike?
No.
I'm not either. You have candy? Yeah, you're going to have candy.
Should I put the code down there for the kids so they can get up into the building?
I'll swing Hayden by and pick up some Reese's Peanut Butter Cups or something.
I'll be like, go away.
Go away. It's like my mom. She turns all of her lights off and she's like, puts like candy out in the front. But if you're which is fine.
Must not be here tonight.
Yep. Kind of like the health inspector.
You see those drapes spreading a little bit.
Like they're gone. Go outside. Check the mail. See if we get our new consumer reports. But that's it. That's all we got. As always, we appreciate you listening and tuning in to our rant or our babble of randomness for the day. We hope you took something positive from it. You can go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It's our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, community, and cosmetic products. If you want to click on our coaching tab to figure out about or find a new coach to help you through your 2022 season, click on there. You can also click on our club membership, which is ongoing right now, or launching November 1st officially, but people are already kind of rolling through there. That goes to the end of 22, even though it might say 2021 on the webpage.
Oh, yeah.
Still, we'll knock that out at some point.
I got that
it's on our punch list. We'll figure that out. And then, but if you need anything from Mike, you can always get a hold of him. He's at crushingiron@gmail.com. And if you need anything from me specifically, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com.
All right, man. Do you think... how long do you think it's going to be before Halloween trick-or-treating is in the morning for safety? Is it moving that way? Because I feel like it gets earlier and earlier.
I would be down for trick-or-treat in the morning. Like, I'd be I still wouldn't dress up, but
maybe
I would be...
A split trick-or-treat day?
AM, PM.
AM, PM.
Yeah, like, you should have the option. Like, because not all kids are, like, want to go out at night either. Like, I had a big day at school. I don't want to go out. Hayden, he would be, like, knocking on doors at, like... Because we walk... Conan in the morning, he'll go with me sometimes, and he'll like take like the weekly neighborhood paper that comes out from the county that literally no one reads, and he grabs it and tosses it on people's like front doors. He'd be totally out with his headlamp and Brock and getting some candy, and then the PM people get the leftovers. That's all we got.
All right, man. Well, we got to get on to our day.
Yeah, we'll see ya.
See ya.